Yeah, hi, Rob.
Hey, how are you? How should I refer to you? Jerry?
Yeah, you can call me Sai.
Sai. Okay, great, Sai. Great to meet you again.
Thank you very much for being on my show, Rob.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So I've gone through your profile. I can see you're doing you're trying to say something to the world and you're trying to give some message. So I thought to tell about your work to my audience.
Tell your audience what?
Your work, the work that you're
Or
doing.
okay, sure. Yeah. I mean, my message now is about biblical marriage, biblical polygyny specifically, where letting people know, especially Christians, that it's God's okay with you having more than one wife at a time, which is shocking to me because most people in mainstream Christianity believe in monogamy only. They think that's what the Bible taught, but it's a false doctrine. It's probably the biggest deception in Christianity, and it's really destructive. It causes a lot of pain. It causes men to be fearful of marriage, and they drag their feet. They don't get married. Women age out. They don't. They end up. They may be, if they're Christians, there's a shortage of good godly men to marry, so they have to marry guys that aren't Christians or stay single for their whole life and not have children. It's a mess. My message has always been about marriage. I mean, before I started talking about polygyny, I had a platform that talked about sexual purity, about saving sex for marriage. Now it's just, I adjust it slightly because it's still about marriage. It's just now, instead of speaking to women and telling them to wait, I'm speaking to men. I'm also telling them to wait, but I'm also letting them know that God's okay with them having more than one wife. The Bible's very clear about this. We've just been lied to. So,
So before talking more about this, can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
sure. So everybody knows who I am. My mom got pregnant with me at the age of 14. I pretty much grew up without my father being around, no male role model, and was pretty girl crazy from the time I hit puberty. I was like, all I could think about was girls and just having sex with girls, so eventually I lost my virginity when I was, in my teenage years, and I became a stripper. My goal in life was to become a male stripper from probably the age of about 14. And I became like the number one stripper in Baltimore. I was in the phone book. I was working for all the entertainment agencies. I worked for a male review that traveled around, and I was having a lot of sex with girls, slept with hundreds of women, was making decent money. And I didn't think about God too much. And then when I was 27 years old, I got baptized in the Holy Spirit. I don't know if you know what that is, but basically, God called me. He revealed himself to me, and he said, "Follow me. I have a plan for you." And I did. I changed everything. I dropped stripping. I stopped having sex. I didn't have sex again for 6 years, and that was only a mistake, that I fell back into it. But yeah, I like to say I'm a reformed bad boy, because I used to be really crazy and wild, and then I became a Christian, and tried to change everything. I'm still a work in progress, but one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this message in particular, biblical marriage, is because of what it cost me. Like, I was hanging on to this monogamy only belief. I didn't even question it. I never really even looked into it. I just assumed they were accurate. And I was waiting for this one unicorn to come along that would have made me feel, in love, romantically, like I wasn't going to want anybody else, or be strongly, tempted to cheat, or to feel like I settled. And I was just convinced that there had to be one out there that would make me feel this way, even though I'd never felt it before. And that cost me about 2 decades of my life, where I was single and I was abstinent for the majority of 18 years. I made like 2 mistakes, I think. So I backslid for 5 years, and I had sex with a couple hundred women as a Christian, just because I was, I fell back into sexual sin. But when I rededicated, first I had a 6-year period where I didn't have any female, interaction. And then I had another 12 years where I just made 2 isolated mistakes in 12 years. It was very difficult. It was very lonely. And, but had I known about biblical marriage, there were many women that I met that wanted to marry me. They were good women, but I just could never get my mind around one for my whole life. And I would pray and ask God, I'll marry her and I'll fight it. I'll make it work. I'll fight these urges. And God would never give me peace about it. And now I know why, because he wanted me to tell this message, because there's a lot of men, I think, in my position. The men that I think there's a stat out there that says 80% of the women are having sex with 20% of the men. So that means a very small percentage of the men are having sex with a large percentage of the women. Now, the men that are having all this sex, that top 20%, they're not marrying, because they're like, why would I marry? Why would I marry one when I'm having sex with 10 and I could have sex with another 100? Like if you look at the numbers, they're not doing it. They're just not getting married anymore. The numbers, the marriage rates are in the toilet. If you were to tell them, listen, bro, you can have more than one wife, they might go out and marry 4. Great. It's better for them to marry 4 women than it is to go out and sleep with dozens and marry one. That's terrible, because all they did was pollute the dating pool. They slept with your future wife and my future wife, and then they broke her heart and threw her back in the pond, ripped the hook out of her lip like a fish and threw her back in the pond. And maybe she lives and maybe she doesn't. I mean, that's really kind of what monogamy only creates, is this endless catch and release culture where we just catch them. Oh, she's a good fish, but I think there might be a better one in there, and they throw it back. And that's not the way it was supposed to be. We see polygyny throughout the Bible repeatedly. God never spoke one single negative word against it, not once. And you would think that if it was a sin, God's not shy about calling out sin. He called out sin all the time. He put people to death for things. Never once did he say anything about a man being married to more than one woman. And that silence, is deafening. So
what are your questions? What are your questions about it?
My questions? I mean, I'm constantly researching it. I'm always trying to learn more about, oops, sorry about that. You know what? Okay, good. We're good. I don't know that I have many questions now, because I've been researching this topic for a couple of years, and I'm completely convinced that I'm on the right side of this. 99% of Christians are on the wrong side of this. They've never even heard of biblical polygyny, or they've been told that God allowed it back in the day, but now the new covenant and blah blah blah, all this bull crap. This is what I mean. You have to ask yourself if you're a Christian. So first off, you say, okay, the Israelites, God's people, they had direct access to God. They wrote the Bible. They had all the prophets. Some of them spoke with God face to face. And you're going to tell me that you understand the Bible better than them when they're the ones that received the word from God directly thousands of years? Because God's people were polygynists, right? They had multiple wives. And that polygyny made them into a great nation. That's the reason the government doesn't want us to know about this, is because it's nation building. I mean, if you look at Israel, they were one single man. And 430 years later, they were 2.4 million people, and they overthrew Egypt, the greatest country in the world at the time. That is the power of polygyny. It's reproduction. You can't reproduce that fast under monogamy. And that's why the government doesn't like it, because it takes the power out of their hands and makes us hard to control. You get a man that's got 20 kids and 10 of them are able-bodied sons, men. He's got a little army. He's got a little militia. Now you got thousands and thousands of families like this. You can't control those people. You can't push them around. You can't tax them to death. That's why the government doesn't like this. I'm personally not practicing it. I may never have a second wife. I'm leaving that to God. But I can read, and I can see that God's fine with this. And people need to know that, because it would change everything. Men would get married. They would man up, and they would start protecting and providing for these women that they're sleeping with, instead of just catching and releasing. So
people actually get married, and if that doesn't work, they get a second marriage, or if that doesn't work, they go to third marriage. So
no.
you're actually telling, yeah.
Not if it doesn't work. Okay, like you could get married to a second wife for a variety of reasons. Let's just say that you Sai, you have a vision that something you want to do in life, right? That's man's responsibility. I'm supposed to have a vision and a mission. Women were created originally, if you look back at the Bible, to be a man's helpmate. They're supposed to help a man accomplish his vision. Okay, now, and that vision comes from God. I get the vision, you help me accomplish it. If I can accomplish that mission and that vision with 3 wives better than I can with one, if that increases the chances of me actually being able to do it, then I should go out and get 3 wives. I might have one do the books. I might have another one do the administrative stuff. I might have another one do, take care of the babies at home while the rest of us work. I don't know. I mean, everybody's got different skill sets. If you read Proverbs 31, I don't know if you know that chapter, but it's a book in the Bible, a chapter of a book in the Bible, and it talks about what a good wife is. And people will often say, you need to be rich in order to have a bunch of wives, to be polygynous. No, you don't. You need to be a good manager. If you read Proverbs 31, tell me how that wouldn't be to my benefit to have that more than one of those women in my house. Because all of them are hustlers. They're all working, they're all producing, they're all contributing to the household. If I had 3 Proverbs 31 wives instead of 1, that's just going to enable me to get to the finish line faster. So you don't have to be rich. You just have to be a good manager. But to answer your question, you might, your wife just might want some help. What if you got kids? Right now in America, at least in the West, most people have to work. Both sexes have to work. The mom has to work full time and the dad has to work full time just to make the bills. So that means your kids are in daycare, going to public schools, being taught all kinds of crazy crap. And under polygyny, you don't have to, you can homeschool. If you got 3 wives, that's easy. Taking care of kids is easy. Taking care of the house is easy. Taking care of the household bills is easy because you can split it up 4 ways. Like I've had people on my podcast that one guy had 6 wives, and he's like, it's so easy. Each woman only has to cook dinner 1 night a week. And it's a great meal because she only has to cook 1 night a week. So like many hands make light work. We've just been lied to because they don't want us to know the power of this stuff because it makes us hard to control. Polygyny is biblical, and I'm not saying, I haven't lived it, so I can't say for certain that it's easier. I'm sure there's challenges to it too. There's things about it that are harder than monogamy, I'm sure. If you really think about it, polygyny really benefits women more than it does men. I mean, polygyny was originally, put in place by God as his social welfare system because it made sure that the women and the children got taken care of, that they had a good husband to look out for them. Monogamy only is for men because instead of ensuring that every woman gets a husband, monogamy only ensures that every man gets a wife. And even the men that don't deserve a wife have a better chance of getting a wife under monogamy only because each woman can only pick one. I mean, each man can only have 1 woman. But now, instead of marrying, men just don't marry and they just sleep with them. And they keep them around. They keep them on a rotation. And I think there's some ridiculous number of men that aren't even having sex anymore. They haven't had sex. I think a very high percentage of men haven't had sex in the last year. And it's partially due to, I believe, monogamy only. At least with polygyny, it challenges the man to level up. Because if you're a young man and you see a guy and he's got 3 wives, that makes you be like, okay, what do I need to do to get there? Like it would force us as men to, okay, we'd hit the gym, we'd start making money, we'd get up earlier, we'd work, because you probably know, Sai, men will do just about anything for women, like to get the attention of women. Sex. We fought wars for sex, for women. We'll climb the mountain, we'll swim the ocean, we'll do all that for sex. And I believe that polygyny, is that reward, that carrot that would make us, do the hard work to become the kind of men that a woman would share. Under monogamy only, you often see men that really probably wouldn't have a chance under polygyny get married. And then, of course, the divorce rate is, 50%, and 80% of those divorces are being filed by the women, not the men. So I think this is the way it plays out. A woman, in her teens and early 20s, or even maybe her entire 20s, for the most part, she's just sleeping with the men that she wants to sleep with, the high value men. Okay, now she starts getting older. She hits 30, 35 years old, and she hits what they call the wall. Now her biological clock starts ticking, and she goes, I need to get serious about finding a husband because I'm not going to be able to have babies in a certain amount of time. So then they lower their standards a little bit, and they go out and marry just a good guy, a good provider, not the guys that they wouldn't even have given the time of day to in their 20s, but they marry the good guy when they hit 30, 33, 32, 35, because he's safe, and he will marry me. Now, this guy didn't get any attention when he was younger, so he's happy he got a wife. But then they get bored. Now they're like, they were out banging the alphas, and now they're with this beta, and they're bored. And guess what? 80% of the time, they file for divorce. Not men. This is all proven. This is numbers. Numbers don't lie. So this is the way monogamy plays out. Versus, let the high value men marry 4 women, 3 women, 2 women, 5, 6 women, whatever, as many as he can protect and provide for. Let him marry them. If the women say yes, why are we stopping them? Why are we taking that decision away? That option away. If they feel like that's what's best for them, why are we telling them no? Are you trying to tell me? I mean, how prideful do you have to be to think that you know better what's better for someone than they know for themselves? I mean, that's wild to me. Like, are you really saying women can't choose? That they're that naive? I mean, that sounds very sexist to me. That you're saying that they're not smart enough to know what's best for them, because I think they are. But we don't give them that option. And guess what? Because we don't give them an ethical path to polygyny, which would be biblical polygyny, where you get married, save sex for marriage, don't have sex before marriage, get married, consummate, and never divorce. That's biblical polygyny. You can just do that with as many women as you can take care of. Instead, they do it unethically. They just go out and they bang, and you got baby mamas, and you got side chicks, and you got a mess. It's a freaking cesspool because of monogamy only.
What about the legalities and social world about this?
The legalities and the social what?
The social stigma. Or,
Yeah. That's a great question. Well, first off, it's not polygamy or polygyny is what it's actually. If you see my shirt, Polygyny Rocks, pick up one on my merch store. Polygyny is not illegal. Okay. What's illegal is having more than one state-issued marriage license at a time. Okay, I'm not recommending that. I would never do that because you could get arrested for that. But people practice polygyny every day. Guys got girlfriends, they got side chicks. Like we talked, polygyny is happening all around us. I guarantee it's happening in the government. People are married and they have other women on the side. That's not illegal, okay? But you don't need the state to validate your marriage. That's relatively new. Marriage was always between God and the person and the people involved, not between the government. It's not the government's ability to say if my marriage is valid in God's sight. That has nothing to do with them. If they can't validate 2 men being married in God's sight, which they can't, I don't believe that just because the government says 2 men are married, that they're married in God's eyes. So how can they invalidate my marriage by saying that they can't? So yeah, you do a covenant ceremony where you just make your vows in the eyes of God and you keep them. But you could do, if you want to provide some kind of contract, set up some kind of contract between the 2 people to protect them, like the women, finances or whatever. You can do all that contractually. You don't need a marriage license to set that up. So legally, I would be careful about what states you lived in and you did this, because there are certain states where it's a felony and they could maybe even get you for common law marriage if you're living together for a certain period of time. So you have to be careful about all that. The social stigma is very real though. Like, I've been excommunicated from a church, kicked out of my small group, my Bible study. Friends have dropped me, came against me. Family members have kind of spoken against me, and even went to my wife and talked negative things about my beliefs. And that's going to happen, unfortunately. But listen, this is what I would encourage anybody out there. If this is something that you're genuinely exploring and looking into, we are the trailblazers. We're the ones that are the front runners. Eventually this will change. The stigma will go away. The Bible's clear about there's a passage in the Bible named Isaiah 4:1, and it says that somewhere around the return of Christ, like the second coming, and it says, in that day 7 women will take hold of one man and will say, we will provide our own food and clothing, just to give us your last name. So they want to marry him. 7 women are trying to marry one man. It says that's going to happen in the future sometime. So I believe that we're in the beginning of that fulfillment of that prophecy. And we're just the people that are going to, we're going to take the most arrows in the back right now. We're going to get hit with the most amount of bullets, but eventually those bullets, they can only hit us for so long. I see more people speaking out about this now than ever before. I see people in my comments, educating people. I want to say debating people, but they're really just educating them, because nobody was shared this information, and people are getting braver. When you look back at the homosexual movement, and I don't agree with homosexuality. I think it's a sin for 2 men to sleep together. I think the Bible's pretty clear about that, but I respect what they did. If you look at some point in like around the 1960s or something, they got tired of all the persecution and getting beat up and arrested, and they just said, we're not going to take it anymore, and they started marching. Right. So if all the men and women out there who believe in this actually stood up at the same time and said, forget this, we're not going to hide anymore, we could change things. But most of them are too scared, have been at least too scared because of the persecution. But I'm seeing that change. So I believe, you're going to have to endure it for a little while, but it's going to become less and less over time.
In the human evolution, when from the Homo sapiens to till now, so we have actually created a world with rules and regulations and systems, and
your
we formed.
mic sounds. Say that again. I'm having a hard time picking up your mic. It's kind of like.
Yeah, actually, if we observe the human evolution, how we have evolved from the Homo sapiens till now. We have created the rules. We have made the systems because of our convenience in order to govern and make things go without crime or without criminal activities, in order to make things go in a systematic way. But we are different. We, the species on this planet, are different from other species. So how do you compare humans with other species, and how different it is? And give me a strong reason why you are into that.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at mammals, it's a very small percentage of mammals are monogamous. I want to say it's like 3 or 4%, very small percentage. And we're a mammal, right? But, one of the things you mentioned was like the reason that we set things up is to prevent crime. And, and I've heard that from people, that they say, okay, listen, if you did this, you're going to leave so many men out of the sexual marketplace that there's going to be crime and uprising and all that. I'm like, well, listen, first off, we don't know that that's true, right? You're trying to predict something that we've never tried, because polygyny's never been legal. I mean, anytime people have practiced it, it's always been secretive because they were afraid of getting arrested or whatever. So we don't have any test studies to show it. But I would go back to ancient Israel, because Israel was polygynous for thousands of years. They didn't have massive amount of crime. They became the greatest country in the world multiple times throughout the Bible, and they were polygynous. Where was all the crime, right? I don't know what would happen if a country instituted this. God could change the birth rates. He might have four female babies be born to every one male baby. We don't know what he would do. I don't know. Or, the Bible in Matthew 19 I believe it is. Maybe it's not Matthew 19. I think it is Matthew 19. Jesus's disciples questioned him about marriage, and they're like, "Whoa, if it, this sounds like a big responsibility." He said, "It's not. Basically, it's not for everybody. So, not everybody needs to be married. Some men need to be celibate. They don't deserve a wife. So, they now if they want to level up and be the kind of man that can marry one or more, they should be allowed to. But why are we controlling it? We're what it is monogamy only is sexual socialism. It's like, okay, each man gets one. You only get one. You can only have one. Here, you get one. You get one. Like, why is the government controlling that? Shouldn't we let the market dictate? If a guy's a stud and he's rich and 4 women want to marry him, let him. Why would we stop them? Like, this is what's crazy to me, Sai, is like, legally, at least here in the West, I don't know what it's like over there, I can go out and sleep with as many women as I want legally. I can have sex with them. I can impregnate them. I can abandon the babies. I can even, abort the babies legally. But if I want to marry 2 women and provide for them and protect them and love them for a lifetime, that's illegal. Is that the craziest effing thing you've ever heard of? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. It's legal to go out and sleep with as many as you want and impregnate them, but if you want to commit to 2, that's illegal. That should tell you that there's something very wrong here. There's something malicious at play. That there's a reason that they do this, and I believe again it goes back to the power.
So what is the reason it is there like that?
I think it's the power. I think it's because it would make us hard to control. We would reproduce at such a rapid rate that they wouldn't be able to. It would limit government's control, because you'd have all these powerful families that could not be controlled. They literally could bear arms and revolt if you tried to push them around. And I think they want it easier to control. If you are a man and you got 3 wives at home and they treat you good, you're having a lot of sex, you got a bunch of kids, you feel like a king when you come home. You're going to feel you're going to have high self-esteem. You're going to have a high self-worth. You're going to feel like, you're going to have the energy to push back if you need to. But if you're a man that's just been ran through a divorce, she took half your stuff and the kids, and you're going to be a shell of yourself. You don't even have the energy to fight. That man is far easier to control. And I think that they want that. They want us easier to control. Why do the women get the money? Why do women get half of our stuff? Why does the court incentivize women to leave their husbands financially? They financially incentivize them because they give them half the money and oftentimes the custody of the kids. So the women, they're emotional beings. They're not logical as we are. They're emotional. And so they make emotional decisions sometimes and they blow up their families. And why does the courts put the power in their hands? Because they do. They financially incentivize them to divorce sometimes or oftentimes.
If there is no government and if there is no system, do you think that the humanity will stay? Or
if there was no system for what?
Yeah, if there is no system or there is no governance or there is no rules and regulations, do you think that humans can have a life, a peaceful life? Do you think that?
I think there should be government. I'm not against all government. I think there should be small government, little regulation. I think the government oversteps, and tries to control things too much. But I think if we were to allow polygyny, I think Christians would thrive. I think anytime we get away from God's design, we're going to have problems. So when you see a lot of, there's a lot of infidelity in the West. 30% of the men on the dating apps are married. A very high percentage of men in marriage is cheat. High percentage of divorce, very low marriage rates, high abortion rates. All these things are a direct result of this false doctrine of monogamy only. if we just did what the Bible said, everything would run a lot smoother. I mean, do we really think we understand how to do this better than God, who put everything in place? He's the one that set all this thing in motion. He designed humans. He knows how it's going to function best. So if we start getting away from, I mean, and the Bible's clear. If you go back to Exodus 21:10 in the law of Moses, it says, if a man takes another wife, he must not deny the first food, clothing, and additional and conjugal rights. So it's right there in the law. You know, for any Christians out there listening, I would say, listen, does God regulate sin? Because that's what he did. He regulated something. He regulated plural marriage in Exodus 21:10. He told David, King David, in 2 Samuel 12:8, he said, I gave you your wives, and I would have given you more if you asked. So does God give us sin? Of course not. God doesn't give us sinful things. He only gives us good things. So we know polygyny is not a sin, that God blessed it. He regulated it. He gave men it. Sometimes he even commanded it. Exodus 22:16 says if a man sleeps with an unbetrothed virgin, he has to marry her. It doesn't say if he's not already married. It says if you sleep with her, you have to marry her. A man sleeps with a woman, that a virgin, he has to marry her. So in that case, he was commanded to take a second wife or a third wife or whatever, depending on how many he already had. So we need to get back to the roots, the original, what God said, and try to follow that as closely as possible. And a lot of these problems that you see in the world will resolve themselves. But no, I believe in government. I'm not against all government. I just think they're in this, on this particular topic, they're really, really wrong.
So why law is there? Why government is there?
Say that again.
Why there is a legal thing in the society, in the social world, and why there is government in the social world?
Why is there a law against this?
Why humans have government? Why humans have legal things?
I see.
According to you.
I mean, I guess it's just to, we have to we have to agree on, ways to live with each other, right? So like imagine if you went to an intersection and there was no red light, no traffic light. There probably would be a lot of accidents because everybody does, you don't know when to go or when to stop. So I think you have to have laws to regulate how we live with each other, or it will turn to chaos. But a lot of our laws in the West are based off the Bible. People they're based off the Ten Commandments. Like they're not just arbitrary laws that we pulled out of thin air. They're based off of the Word of God. So even the Bible has 10 commandments, right? They're laws, right? Don't murder, don't steal, don't lie, don't commit adultery or steal, covet your wife's, your neighbor's wife, and all these different things that will be like, look, if you do this, your life will be easier, and you'll make the lives of everyone around you easier. So I think we need to have certain laws to just agree on how to, live in proximity to each other and do life together.
So do you think that this is why the government is not encouraging maybe not to have more than one wife?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to control us. I mean, think about it. Why would they legalize gay marriage? They legalize abortion. They legalize all these things that are just even against common sense and nature. If I was to go out and find like an egg of an eagle, you know what an eagle is? Bald eagle, the bird. Yeah, if I found the egg of an eagle and I destroyed it, I could get fined like some crazy amount of money, $50,000 or whatever, just for destroying that egg. But I can go out and kill a human baby legally in the womb. Like, isn't that baby worth at least as much as that eagle? Like, but so, the Bible says that we're living in basically the devil controls this world. He's the prince of the power of the air, and there's probably other titles for him that I can't think of, but this world is evil. It doesn't function by God's rules. And polygyny is part of that. Polygyny is God's design. It's it's God's social welfare system to make sure that women have a husband. Nothing is worse for society than a bunch of women running around who don't have husbands. Because what do? They have sex. Then they make babies. And those babies grow up without fathers. And those kids become criminals or depressed or suicidal or all the problems that fatherless homes bring. Children raised in fatherless homes. It's a mess. So women should have a husband. They should have a covering. This is why the Bible says, a man, if he should go to the father of the woman and ask the man if he can marry the daughter. Then this woman is covered her entire life. She has male protection, over her entire life. That's the way it should be. Not to say women don't have choices and they can't make decisions. I think they should be able to make this decision for themselves. But yeah, it's really bad. It's bad for society for a woman to be running around without a covering, because number one, she's weaker. She could get attacked, she could get raped. She could, somebody could break in her house, and lots of bad things can happen. But women were supposed to have a man to help with his mission and follow. I mean, I believe the Bible's clear about that. But that's not really my message. That's not my hill to die on. I don't feel super strongly about. I guess I do feel strongly about a woman needs a husband, but the whole making sure she's covered from birth to death. I don't know how I've heard people talk about that. I don't know how I feel about it.
So, in the history of humanity, do you see humans talking about this before?
No, I haven't. I was a Christian for 23 years, and I never heard one person talk about this. I just Googled it on a whim because I was curious, because I watched a Netflix special and there were some polygynists on it. And I wondered if there were any Christians who believe this, because I've always known that I was more wired for this than I was for monogamy, because I never did very good in monogamous relationships. But I denied it because I didn't think it was allowed. I thought it was sin. So I just would never let myself even really go there in my mind that it was. And then one day I looked it up and I saw the holes. I mean, the monogamy only doctrine has more holes than Swiss cheese. I mean, there's so many mental gymnastics you have to do to make it work. But it's, I would just encourage anybody out there that's watching this, if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, research this for yourself. Please do yourself a favor, because you're going to see the truth. It's not hard to find.
What do psychologists or doctors say about this?
I don't know. I mean, studies are easily manipulated. So people say, oh yeah, studies show that the women that are in polygynous marriages are worse off. They're more depressed, or the kids are negatively affected. I would challenge that. I've talked to a lot of people that were in polygynous marriages, the kids and the wives, and they're pretty happy. The divorce rate's far lower. You would have to, I would not believe in a million years that you're going to tell me a woman who's a second wife is less happy than a woman who has no husband. That you cannot convince me of that. Because I know a lot of women that are out there single moms and just single women that can't find a husband right now. I know many, and they're not that happy. They're so freaking tired. They're exhausted because they're working. They're doing everything by themselves. They don't have a man, like nobody to contribute. And that's not how they were designed. They should be, look, babe, get in the passenger seat. Let me drive. Just relax. Enjoy the ride. I mean, not to say they don't work. They do work. They help. But they're not supposed to be trying to control everything. They're not built for it. And I just think that I don't remember what your question was, but what was your question?
Yeah, I will ask you the next question. I have the next question.
Okay.
So, do you think without this controllability, do you think the social world or the society will stand?
What was the first part of it? You said it with say the first part.
Without this controllability and giving 100% freedom.
Oh
Do
yeah.
you think that society will stand? Do you
I
think
think it
that?
will thrive. I think it would thrive if they allowed it. I mean, again, all we have to do is go back to Israel. What happened? That was the real test case because they did this and it thrived. They became, you know, the strongest country in the world in a short amount of time. They went from one man, a single man, to millions in like just a couple hundred years. So imagine if Christians did that. Imagine if Christianity embraced polygyny. Now you're gonna have more babies, right? Because how many women can I impregnate as a man? Many, right? If I had 10 wives, I can have them all pregnant at the same time. Okay, and a woman can only have one child per year, approximately. Okay, so you're going to have more kids. Okay, the dad's going to be in the home, so now you got a godly father figure raising them, teaching them the ways of God. Okay, they become fathers at some point. They might have a few wives, and this reproduction. So personally, I just believe that I believe Jesus was who he said he is. And Christianity is, the way to God, I believe. I know you're not a Christian, and I respect your beliefs, but I think specifically, societies would thrive, but Christianity, if they embrace this, that we would take dominion. We would populate heaven, and we would, take dominion over the earth. But right now, we're being outbred by Muslims. Muslims are allowed to have 4 wives. And they're having babies at a much faster rate than us. And they're taking over countries in Europe and Canada, all these places. They're taking over the world because they reproduce faster than us. So I think, all you have to do to answer that question that you just asked me is look at what the Muslims are doing. They have polygyny and they're thriving. So.
So in the world, if there are no if this happens, or if this is a practice that has been done for years in the humanity today, uh, there is a philosophy in English that anything wider, you can't stop it. Do
Anything
you
what?
think the governments are anything wider, anything big, you can't stop?
Yeah.
The thing that you're saying, if a man is having multiple children, or creating, increasing the population, and the resources, the natural resources, it can be food, shelter, water. Do you think these resources are comfortable, or the if the systems who are the governments, do you think they can share all these things equally? Because that is going to be a big factor if the population is increasing. So
Yeah.
do you think this is one of the reasons why government is
No.
limiting humans?
Well, there are a lot of people that are in power that believe that we need less people, right? Because for the sake of the planet. But that's not, I don't believe that. If you look, Elon Musk has got to be one of the smartest people in the world. I mean, you look at his accomplishments. He talks about we're not at risk for overpopulation. We're at risk for underpopulation.
I
Right now,
heard that.
yeah,
Yeah, I heard that.
the birth rate has collapsed. So now, if you don't have enough young people to pay taxes to support the old people, you're in trouble. And that's what's happening now, is because people aren't having babies at the rate that they were. And now you have countries like, which one was it? Hungary. Hungary just put some law out where women that have one kid, they don't pay taxes until they're, 20, 30 or something. And if you have 4 kids or more, I believe you're tax-free for life. So like now even Trump has some $5,000 for new moms. They get, have a baby, you get $5,000 because our birth rate. So no, we need more kids. We don't need less. I think there's plenty of resources to share. Elon talks about that. He's like, I don't know what it's like in India. I know it's very populated, but if you drive through America, you go through the Midwest, all it is land. It's just land and land. And, it's so much land. Like I heard a statistic where if you were to fly from, New York to LA and you dropped a bowling ball out of a plane, the chances of you hitting somebody is only like 1 in a million or some crazy number. Like there's that few people. right? There's not that many people. There's so much more land than there is people. This is just BS by the I don't know if it's the climate people or who's putting this out, but I don't believe that I think we have, we have plenty of room for people, plenty of room in the world for people.
Is this restricted because of biological thing?
Political?
Is this restricted because of the biological thing in men or women?
Well, biologically, I mean, and which I think God leaves clues, right? So if you look at a man and you look at a woman, our reproductive ability, a woman can only have one baby every year, okay, approximately. A man can have unlimited number of baby. I can impregnate unlimited number of women every year. In addition, I can have babies far later in life than a woman. She's going to hit menopause and she can't have babies after the age of 40 or so. But I could have babies till I'm 70 or whatever the number is, right? Why? Why did God set it up like that? Because he did it for a reason. He doesn't do anything arbitrarily, like, oh, just no reason. No, he did it for a reason, because of polygyny. Because I can be 50 years old. I might have a wife that I've been married to for 30 years when I'm 50, and I still have to keep her, but I can't run off with the younger girl, which is what happens all the time under monogamy. A man will meet a younger woman and he'll drop the old wife and he'll run off with the younger girl. That's not allowed, right? No, polygyny makes room for that. So this way, he says no. He brings in the younger woman. He can continue to grow his family with that woman. He can impregnate the 25-year-old. Now, and he's got the 50-year-old wife. He's got a 25-year-old wife. Maybe he marries another one when he's 60. I don't know. But and he impregnates her too, right? This is biology leaves clues, and God set all this up for a reason. Younger women are always attracted to older men, and older men are always attracted to younger women. Why is that? Well, because of what I just said, because of polygyny and because of reproduction. So I believe biology points us to polygyny. It doesn't point to monogamy only at all.
What do people say about this? About the questions that you have raised just now? Because you said 2 points. One is men can have children up to 70 or for a long time, and women